Welcome, Bits and Bobs is coming at you. Conor McKeon is in the house. Nice to see you.
And you, Joe?
Will, here once again.
Back again. Survived my first game of paddle.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to tell the tale.
Yeah.
Have you discontinued the counting the number of days that Will has been? Last time I was on, it was...
This would be 8, 9.
9, made it to 9, yeah.
Tomorrow's 10.
Yeah. And?
So on and so forth.
Just 6 months to go.
My performance review in July.
Dave McIntyre, who told me I can't read out the correspondence for Badham, is really questioning the calorie count. You didn't happen to wear a calorie counter yesterday, did you? Playing paddle?
Well, given it was my first time, the lengthy rallies never really materialised because I was probably getting in the way of those from progressing. Yeah. So I certainly didn't burn 800.
800?
That was the...
In an hour and a half. Yeah, you're in the McIntyre camp.
I don't know about that.
It would need to be a very, very lengthy back and forth rally. From what I've seen last night, and there was another court going on beside me, didn't look like 800 calories per person. But I've only played one game. I don't want to anger the paddle listeners because someone emailed in earlier asking how to book a court in Selbridge. It was really in the weeds.
Maybe if you're playing Novak Djokovic, you burn 800. Although probably not.
Probably not. Listen, I'm just the messenger. My calorie counter on the watch gives me expected calorie counts for other activities. But paddle, it says what it says.
Fair enough.
You know? But most people not having it. This all came about because another listener emailed in to reassure me I wasn't crazy. And a separate make of calorie counter also suggested paddle was the greatest exercise in the world. So, did you enjoy it? Yes?
Yeah.
Well, you recommend it to any listeners out there who are already tiring of mentions of paddle on this particular podcast?
Yeah, get out and do it, and you won't find that it is grating when people talk about it. It's very enjoyable.
For no other reason.
Just for that alone. But no, it is fun. I can see why people like it.
A separate podcast today on the appointment of Carla Ward as women's national team manager and also on Colin Healy's press release. He is not one generally to speak publicly in this way, but he is scathing of the FAI and his treatment. Obviously, he was part of the Eileen Gleeson setup and was subsequently not kept on and is not happy with how he was treated. So we'll discuss that with Rachel O'Sullivan, who covers the WSL and women's football. She's going to be in studio. She's at the press conference later on today as we record. And Aidan Fitzmaurice as well of the paper is also at the press conference. So they will pop into studio and that will be on your feed this afternoon. Also with Aidan, by the way, we'll discuss this RTE story. They are set to lose League of Ireland rights to Virgin Media Television. The clubs are voting in favour of Virgin's bid. In part, you suspect because Virgin are going to show a match per round, 36 Premier Division matches free to air. RTE, I think we're looking at 20. So it seems the clubs have said, let's go with Virgin. So we'll see what Aidan makes of that whole story. RTE and League of Ireland, one of these kind of difficult relationships, I think, down the years. So we'll talk to Aidan about all of that on your feed elsewhere. Should mention as well, it's not really one for us to discuss for obvious reasons, but it's in the news. Conor McGregor, civil lawsuit filed against him in Florida on Tuesday. Not to be confused, by the way, there is a judge in the civil court action taken by Nikita Hand ruling today in Dublin on an injunction taken to stop him from disseminating CCTV footage, which was shown during that particular trial. That's a separate situation that will be ruled on today. But in Florida, well, it would seem he'll be in a courtroom again. The woman in question, her name is not in public. Court records, though, these were filed on Tuesday, state she's 49 years old, senior Wall Street vice president at a high-profile financial institution. She's maintained her anonymity, quote, to avoid embarrassment and shame from the conduct alleged and to protect the privacy for her career. But we do have quite a few details about the alleged incident in the court documents. So this happened in 2023, 2 years ago now, the summer of 23, at Miami Heat's stadium at a basketball match. So I'll just read from the piece on the Irish Independent website. The court documents outline how the woman and McGregor were engaged in an amicable conversation at the game. The woman states that when her acquaintance told her they were leaving, an associate, so her friend told her they were going to leave, an associate of McGregor approached them and said, "Conor told me to come and get you." So it's claimed he led them towards the exit of the courtside club and they stopped outside a men's bathroom. McGregor's associate held onto the woman's wrist, it's alleged, and when she asked him to let go, she was told, "No, Conor will kill me if I lose you." So then it's further alleged McGregor comes out of the bathroom, grabs the woman's wrist, leads her into the bathroom with her acquaintance to follow. The woman claims in this lawsuit that McGregor appeared, quote, under the influence of intoxicants and out of control, end quote, alleges that while she was in the stall, he attempted to force himself onto her sexually without her consent. It's then alleged that when she attempted to exit the stall, he slammed her against the wall face first, put her in an arm lock, attempted further sexual contact without her consent. The claim alleges that Conor McGregor, quote, intentionally engaged in unlawful sexual contact, and that his actions were, quote, for his own sexual gratification and for the purpose of degrading the woman. McGregor's lawyers have called the allegations false. She had reported this to authorities 2 days after the incident. The relevant prosecutor's office in Miami elected not to pursue criminal charges. This is not a criminal case. This is a civil case. And so the woman in question has decided to pursue things in a civil court. So that's where we are. Those charges, those court documents just filed on Tuesday in Florida. This was the night, by the way, you might remember it from the time McGregor was doing a halftime skit with the mascot, Bernie, as part of a promotion for a pain relief spray. And the lawsuit alleges that the individual playing Bernie needed medical attention. You might remember the footage from that, just to jog memory or give you a sense of time and place. So that's in a Florida courtroom. There's obviously a judgment today in Dublin, and these are the continued trials and tribulations of Conor McGregor. So that's that. There's not much else we can say about it. It's not really a freewheeling conversation. What else is going on? Aaron Connolly is joining Millwall in the Championship. He's ended his short spell at Sunderland to move to Millwall. Marca reporting that Trent Alexander-Arnold has agreed terms on his move to Real Madrid and will move to the Bernabeu in the summer. So I think that one is pretty well signposted at this stage. Who do you think agreed with Pep Guardiola dressing down the professional autograph hunters? Who do you think saw that and said, I approve of that?
I know the answer, so I'll leave it to Conor.
Roy Keane.
Roy Keane said. So this was when Pep had accosted to be fair, they were accosting him first, I should say.
Yeah.
The professional autograph hunters, and said things like, do you want to live your life doing this honestly? To which one of the professional autograph hunters said, no, I used to be a chef. Good on Guardiola for lecturing the autograph hunters. They're an absolute nuisance. You see them everywhere. He's dead right. Years ago, if you wanted a jersey, there was an element of respect. There isn't that respect now. Now there are people waiting in the car parks. Also, is that his house? It's awful if they don't know. It's awful if they know where people are living now. They're idiots. Well done, Pep.
That's nice.
Yeah, as expected. What did you make of Pep in full interventionist mode?
I mean, he's quite highly strung, isn't he?
Yeah.
It's nothing that we didn't know. It's nothing that we didn't know before.
I thought it was somewhat well-meaning.
I know. I think, yeah.
So you defended him on the Ortega thing. You're defending him on the autograph thing.
Yeah, a little bit, haven't I?
I have to say, like, you know, I've been sort of around people who are sort of obviously not as well known as Pep Guardiola, but get pestered by people who are looking for selfies and autographs and stuff like that. And I don't think you fully appreciate how weirdly invasive it is until you actually see people being invaded like that. You know, what people just on the road think is, oh, I get an autograph for selfie. Sure, it's only 2 seconds out of their time and it'll be gone. When it's the 40th person and you're trying to have a conversation. And I think it's, you know, obviously it's it's not the worst problem to have in the world, but there definitely is a point where people just crack and say, leave me alone.
And the implications that these guys are selling this stuff on, it's not as if it's like a guy's child going up for a once-in-a-lifetime picture. These people are apparently like there every week with more material for him to sign so they can sell it. So,
I remember reading the column by Rick Riley in one of his compendiums, the famous American sports writer, And he was having lunch with some baseball player whose name I couldn't remember. And like there was literally somebody came up who was in the restaurant, ran out of the restaurant to some sports store nearby and bought a box of 6 baseballs and came in and like asked, it was it Mark McGuire or somebody, to sign all 6 baseballs, like, you know, because there's a huge market out there, not just for autographs, but for signed merchandise, you know. I nearly wanted Mark McGuire to pose with a photograph to verify the fact that he had signed them.
What these guys were doing with Guardiola.
Have either of you ever been asked for an autograph? Surely your Virgin Media fame is
wait till the
photos, autographs.
Wait till the RTE guy comes out and they'll be...
I'll sign any RTE guides. No. A selfie in like drunken environments.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And you don't mind it?
Well, not if I'm equally drunk, you know. Hey!
Let me get one of you.
Very rarely. No one would be that desperate, I think it's fair to say.
You'd be surprised.
But I mean, so you get a 0.01% of a glimpse of how irritating it would be if you're not the right personality type. Like for Roy Keane, and he goes viral routinely.
Yeah, telling people where to go.
Yeah, especially if they're asking rudely or not in the right way. I mean, he wants to be asked in a particular way. I suspect he's actually okay a lot of the time if he's asked in the right way. Maybe not always, as Roy McIlroy can attest.
There is a funny clip of himself from Ian Wright walking through a supermarket or something like that, and somebody recognises Ian Wright first, and he stops for the pictures, and you can actually see Roy Keane hiding behind a little pillar in the shopping centre. Like, imagine a man as notoriously ferocious as Roy Keane trying to hide behind a pillar so people don't annoy him for an autograph.
His life must be very annoying in some ways. I would like, to your point, like he's so recognisable, like, and he's the kind of person that everyone would want a picture. Oh, the time I met Roy Keane, that he must, every time he leaves the house, it must be like a nightmare to do anything, like go to a restaurant, go to the supermarket. Probably he doesn't do that often. But
he said to Gary Neville a couple of years ago in that big overlap interview that, you know, when he goes to a restaurant, it's Tuesday at 5, Saturday at 8 p.m. is out.
Yeah. I remember he did a Q&A with Gary Neville a few years ago, you know, when they're walking and he's walking his dog. And
that's what I'm talking about, yeah.
Same one. But he said, like, where's your favourite holiday destination? He's like, I like America, just the anonymity. I can just go there because obviously it's not as big, soccer's not as big there. You can probably have a little bit of a normal holiday.
I think it's a curse. Oh, yeah. To be well known as a curse.
I remember Rory McIlroy talking with Tiger Woods. He, you know, invited him out for dinner, and like, not as if Rory's not famous enough as it is, but like Tiger Woods, Rory was almost like aghast at the level of fame. Like, literally there isn't a room or a building or a street that he can walk into sort of unaccompanied without people.
Well, probably much like Keane in large parts of this part of the world, Woods, they're in that echelon of, the will I won't I approach them debate. It is not happening. I have to get over to them, you know.
It's funny, you know, it's not the same thing, but I got married in the summer and I did find everyone was asking me for photos, like your friends, family, and I was like, is this what it's like to be famous? It was very annoying. After like 2 photos or 3 photos, I couldn't like walk around without people asking me for pictures, and it was well-meaning, but I was like, this is a pain in the ass. I'd hate to be famous.
They're not strangers, Will.
I know.
These are my people you allegedly love.
Friends and family. But
as soon as I got shacked up, I was just famous. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, I know. So I had a glimpse into that life and I didn't like it.
What an interesting way to glimpse fame. So we touched on Sol Campbell's ad yesterday.
So if you're thinking about transferring this January, I said go for it.
And we were wondering, did you see the ad?
I did.
What do you think?
I mean, I'm surprised he did it. Like, given the, I think it's brilliant, fair play to him and everything else. But I'm surprised he's sort of like teeing himself for another wave of abuse.
Do we still really hate Sol Campbell? Maybe we should be grown-ups. Wait a second.
Like, it was 2001. Like, I remember I was in an internet cafe in Paris when I found out that Sol Campbell, and like, it was back in the day before, you know, transfer rumours were anything other than sort of tabloid media fodder. It was such a big story at the time.
Well, he's leaned into pantomime villain now. There's no like, passage of time. Maybe we make our peace with Sol. He was a great player for us. He's gone full. We're never being friends.
Yeah, a bit like the time Rodri Giggs did the ad for the bookmaker. Yeah. You're just thinking, geez, would you not just let sleeping dogs lie? But
that was a very good ad.
Oh, brilliant ad.
Stephen Lyons was in touch, though, to counter. We were just wondering, was Sol Campbell most hated? Maybe just ahead of Figo, Pig's Head.
Figo, yeah, Pig's Head, yeah.
And Stephen Lyons said, most hated transfer, lads, Mo Johnston. That is all.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay, fair. So I had some time this morning. I casted my mind back. This was 1989. Graham Souness is the Rangers manager. And he signs Mo Johnston, a Roman Catholic. So Johnson had been a Celtic player, had won the league with Celtic, and then went to play in France for Nantes in 87, 2 years there. And he's back on the market. He wants to come home. And I hadn't realised an aspect of the vitriol is not just on Rangers' part, but also very much on Celtic part, because he signed a contract see, this was the crucial part, a letter of intent to come back to Celtic. I've had my time in France. I'm coming back. Celtic say to Nantes, here's 1.2 million. Here's a 400k deposit. And what's worse, Mo was unveiled in May.
That's right.
So Mo says things like at the unveiling holding a Celtic jersey. I didn't want to leave Celtic in the first place. I don't intend to now. There was some rubbish about me wanting to join Manchester United, but that never entered my head to play for any other club. In fact, there's no British club I could play for apart from Celtic. That's why you never go OTT in your
He's
proclamation.
teed himself up nicely.
Oh my goodness. So the reason there wasn't a contract signed and just a letter of intent is there was some tax issue that had to be sorted out. It's all a bit murky. So from Souness's point of view, he wrote after the event, I was asked the question the very first day I went to Rangers, would you sign a Catholic? And my answer then was quite simple. I said, look, my wife's a Catholic. I have 2 kids who've been christened Catholic. So you're saying to me I can't come to work with a Catholic, but I can go home to a Catholic. I said, of course I'd sign a Catholic. And he had been interested in Ray Houghton apparently at the time as well. So where this was all very dramatic is much like the Sol Campbell situation, it's just a different time, a different era. There's a Guardian piece looking back in it 20 years on. Most journalists arrived at Ibrox into the Blue Room, naturally, on 10th of July 1989. This is just 2 months after Mo has done his whole unveiling. They were expecting to see another new signing, John Sheridan, paraded. Souness never did get around to sealing that particular deal. As Mo Johnston entered the room, there was a collective gasp for air.
Brilliant.
The drama. Here's BBC that evening.
Glasgow's 2 great soccer teams, Rangers and Celtic, have something else to feud about tonight. The centre-forward Mo Johnston, who a few weeks ago was about to join Celtic, has signed up instead for Rangers. And the signing is unusual for another reason. Johnston is a Catholic, and normally Rangers players are Protestants.
So Rangers Supporters Association, David Miller said, it's a sad day for Rangers. There'll be a lot of people handing in their season tickets. I don't want to see a Roman Catholic at Ibrox. It really sticks in my throat. And there was a wreath laid outside the front door of Ibrox saying, 116 years of tradition ended. So it's full on. Terry Butcher writes, day after the signing, the club wanted all the Scottish and English players to hold a press conference to tell the media what a good signing Mo was. That was no problem for me, Ray Wilkins, Chris Wood, Mark Walters. But the Scottish players, Davy Cooper, Ian Ferguson, Ali McCoy, John Brown and the rest, they declined because they'd received so many calls from friends telling them not to become involved. It says elsewhere, the Rangers kitman refused to lay out Mo Johnston's kit before each match as a protest against a Catholic playing for Rangers. What does Mo Johnston do in his first ever Old Firm game? He scores the winner. And the rest is history. He had a very good time at Rangers, scored a lot of goals, was part of that 9 in a row winning side. He has never really spoken expansively about the decision. The one thing he said is he regrets letting down the late Tommy Burns, the Celtic captain at the time. Celtic manager Billy McNeil, I can't forgive him. I don't think the Celtic fans ever will. He's disrespected us all. Celtic fans at Parkhead officially registered a We Hate Mo Johnston Celtic Supporters Club. I don't know if that's still going. Can only hope.
Well, they definitely have reunions anyway.
And a final one from The Guardian. Just as an aside, it's nonsense to suggest Johnston was Rangers' first ever Catholic player. For the record, best guesstimates suggest there were 15 Catholic first-team Rangers players pre-Mo Johnston. For instance, South African centre-forward Don Kitchenbrand amongst them. So he wasn't actually the first, but don't let truth get in the way of a good story. I think that tops Sol Campbell, does it?
Yeah.
I think so. Do you think he'd do a Google Pixels ad maybe?
He might.
Taking off a Celtic jersey and or a Celtic polo.
He might do. Here is a fantastic, beautiful looking Graham Souness, by the way, on the day of the unveiling, explaining his rationale to that same BBC News.
Because I believe he's the best centre-forward in British football today. We don't get many opportunities to buy the best because of so many clubs chasing. This was an opportunity and we went for it. I think Morris will do very well for this club. He's a goal getter. He's a proven goal scorer.
You should have called him Murish.
Premier League last night then. We're going to come to the club finals, which you're covering at the weekend, Connor. So today being Thursday, Manchester United play Southampton this evening. Last night was the North London derby. Arsenal beat Spurs 2-1. Gas back to 4 points. Liverpool game in hand, but Yeah,
it's amazing how quickly, there was a lot of despondency there from Arsenal supporters who have a fetish for it in the space of being knocked out of the cup, and then Gabriel Jesus does his cruciate. And then in the space of 24 hours, sounds like they've teed up Martin Zubimendi from Real Sociedad for the summer, the big midfield signing that Liverpool failed to capture last year. And then they beat Spurs at home after Liverpool draw. So it goes to show you it's very much boom or bust. You're in that parish. I think we've spoken about this before with regards to fans of a certain team, where it's like you're either going to win the thing and it's joy and nirvana and ecstasy, or you're not and it's deep despondency. That's now where Arsenal are, maybe where Liverpool were about 4 or 5 years ago.
the win is all very good and everything. It was a night though which once again highlighted how profligate they are. I mean, it was a set piece.
That's amazing.
To get back into it, any number of chances created, they can't take them.
But it's amazing that Mikel Arteta, the last couple of interviews I've heard him do, and it was the same after the Manchester United match, he's saying, it's crazy we don't win this game. Like, our XG is blah, blah, blah. And Declan Rice said we could have had 10 goals tonight. And it's like, well, sign a striker, guys. Whatever Kai Havertz is. And I heard him described, I think, by Jonathan Wilson as a hybrid between Mesut Ozil and Niall Quinn. But he's definitely not the most cutting edge finisher of all time. So
yeah, Arteta said afterwards in the interview on the pitch that they are looking to sign someone who can score goals in January, so we'll see. Spurs meanwhile, 4 defeats in 5 games. They are 13th in the table, 8 points above the relegation zone. The striking thing here was the extent to which Ange Postecoglou in the post-match press conference looked so defeated. You need to listen to this and just imagine him slumped, his shoulders are rounded, he's looking down at the ground. He can't make eye contact with the interviewer. The tie is, 3/4 of the way down. So he looks just a little bit beaten.
Yeah, look, nowhere near good enough. Especially in the first half, we're just way too passive and allowed Arsenal to sort of dictate the game. Like I said, we hung in there, but that's all we were doing. And second half was a little bit better, but nowhere near good enough. And unacceptable.
At 2-1 though, there's always a chance right up until the end that you can still come away with something out of the game, and Pedro Porro came closest, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, but that's not what I'm interested in. I'm more interested in how we go about playing our football, and it wasn't anywhere near the level today.
It is 11 defeats at this stage, which is the most that Tottenham have had in a league season since 2009. Does it feel like you can still salvage something out of this season in terms of the league?
Well, there's no other way of looking at it. If you sort of give up now, then there's no point. But it needs to stop, yeah.
He sounds broken.
Yeah, I was like, Ange, don't.
Yeah.
You don't lose faith here. This is just a gargantuan injury crisis. They have lost, of these 12 defeats, 11 by a single goal. I hasten to use the word unlucky, but they have scored exactly the same number of goals and conceded exactly the same number of goals as last season, and they're the guts of 20 points worse off. I think this is just a tricky spell. Don't lose faith.
If you look at the run they've been on, it was before that. They beat City 4-0, probably the high point of his tenure.
Yeah.
9 league games since, 1 win, 2 draws, 6 defeats. What's that? 5 points from 27.
I know.
That is.
Some of the football they play is just so sublime. Like he's actually managed to do the hard part. They're just gifting away stupid goals and stupid moments. But I don't know. I think it'd be a terrible mistake for Ange to be sacked.
I agree.
Or would you think that if you were a Tottenham supporter?
I can't really speak for them. I think surely they can look at the way the team plays when they're really cooking. Surely they're more aware of the injury crisis than me. Goalkeeper included, their back five's obliterated. They don't have they'd Porro yesterday. That's it. How many teams in the league could withstand losing 4/5 of their back five?
No.
And it's not like Spurs have endless depth. So I don't know how they feel. I mean, they may have like a broader frustration with Daniel Levy, and things have been sort of in decline since Pochettino departed. But I would sort of think to myself, this is the best ticket in town. We support the most entertaining team in football. We're unlikely to win the league with any manager. This is just a sticky spell. But I mean, this is the guy. I mean, he's likeable, he's charismatic, the team is fun. We've just had Conte and Mourinho. I'm not saying it's one or the other.
They have tried it nearly every way now at this stage.
Yeah. And I think Ange is the most fun way.
And I think when they look back at when they sacked Pochettino, they got to the Champions League final and they get 88, 89 points in the Premier League. I think they look back at that maybe now, and that didn't reflect Daniel Levy's best work.
I'm just worried for him. I looked at that last night and I thought, don't lose your spark, Ange.
The League Cup is big for them. They won the first leg. They have Liverpool. If they can win, they could win the League Cup. Newcastle look like they're probably going to get to the final because they have a 2-goal advantage going back to St James's Park. So that's winnable if he can. They haven't won a trophy since I think 2008. I read Redknapp won the League Cup. So that would be a massive kind of card for them. And if they can get over the line there, that might kind of stem the tide of the league. Is obviously they're in 14th, I think, at the moment. The question, he kind of had a long pause before he said there's no other way of looking at it. But their league season is done and dusted. So if they can win the League Cup and get some injuries back and rebuild for next year, I agree with you. If they sack him, Conor mentioned it there, they've gone in every different personality type they've gone for. They had Nuno for 4 months at one stage as well. Even it's been, and I agree with you, Joe. I'd love to know what Spurs supporters think, because I find them endlessly entertaining. Sometimes tragically, but very entertaining and watchable. They're a very watchable team.
Yeah,
he's the last as well. He's the last of the ideologues, really. There's an element of pragmatism to all the top managers in the Premier League now. That there's no real what do we want to play the beautiful game? Do we want to do the thing that's kind of practical to them? And Roberto De Zerbi, he had that element to him as well, but when it went south, it went very, very drastically south. And what's his name, Russell Martin, the Southampton man, he's gone as well. So you're kind of left with this. And I'd have thought, you look at even at Arteta and Arsenal are now at the precipice where they need to win something, but it took 3-4 sort of transfer windows before he could at least say, well, these are the players who can play the way I want to play properly. And I would have thought that Postecoglou was nowhere even near that yet.
I think be careful what you wish for. I mean, the 2 centre-backs he's missing are exceptional players, speedsters. So I think, and I sort of feel it with Arteta as well. If you get a striker for Arteta, then judge him on those terms. He's done a really, really great job. Everybody's just so trigger happy increasingly. Dave Moyes back at Goodison. It was no kind of perfect welcome home, albeit great reception from the crowd. Ollie Watkins scored a goal, which is all you need to do to beat Everton, is the problem. So here's Moyes. He's only a couple of days into the job, and even he realises that there is a problem.
I thought the crowd were great, and I've got to say I was really thankful for my reception. And but I'm sort of keeping my head down because I don't want to be at a team near the bottom of the league, and I've lost tonight, so I'm not. I've had great times with Everton supporters over the years, and I hope to have more great times with them again. But at the moment, I've got to find a way of getting the team a result, and I've only been here a couple of days, and I'm nearly burnt out looking at how we can score more goals, how we're going to get players who we can do that. If with the squad we have, everybody's just got to say, well, how are you going to find that? Now, if we get something different, that's not. But we have to keep finding ways with the squad we've got at the moment to make goals, score goals, and improve our attacking play.
Yikes!
Seems like a while ago now that Carlo Ancelotti was manager, and they just signed James Rodriguez, doesn't it?
That sounds like the Sunderland David Moyes. Well, we've no chance.
Yeah, he sounds more heartbroken than Ange. He's been there for about 2 days.
Yeah, you want to see heartbroken? You want to see burnt out? Look at Ange over there. Yeah, I don't know. They're in trouble, I suppose. 1 win in 12. In 9 of their last 11 games, they haven't scored a goal.
They feel like they're never going to go down, though. They've come very, very close, and you sort of just take for granted that there's going to be 3, but no more than 3 worse teams than them in the Premier League season.
It's funny, they have such a goal problem. I watched the second half last night. Calvert-Lewin is still leading the line for them. You talk about Ancelotti in that era. That was when he was actually looked like he was going to make a breakthrough as being one of the top strikers in the league. I think he got kind of mid-teens for Premier League goals both of those years, in 1920 and 2021. But injuries and form. Like he had an absolute sitter to equalise the game with about 2 minutes left that he should just be bursting the net with and skied it by about 10 yards. It was kind of a bit like the Harry Maguire chance actually against Liverpool a few weeks back, but you'd expect a centre forward to be able to put that away. And he had a similar one in the first half that was a very poor effort for a guy of, he's your main striker. It's funny, he's like their big hope, but he's so far from the player he was maybe 3-4 years ago.
Yeah. Elsewhere last night, Newcastle 3-0 win against Wolves. 9 wins in a row, Newcastle, all competitions. This Gamiraj, Tonali, Joe Linton behind Isak with Gordon and Murphy either side of him.
Yeah.
These are coming. And Leicester 0, Crystal Palace 2. Ruud van Nistelrooy, 6 Premier League defeats in a row. 6 in a row, defeats.
Very handsome Ruud van Nistelrooy, apparently.
Would you say? Oh, what? But thank you. Sorry, let's not. I mean,
Who said Ruud van Nistelrooy?
glass houses.
We won't name names.
Ronan and Will were. Were you? Which were you?
I was Team Ruud.
Yeah. I can't speak for the man, but Ronan was very handsome though.
No, he's not.
Said he had aged well. That was the crux of his.
No. Always handsome.
No, he wasn't. No. Like Pep and Mikel Arteta have that totally wrapped up.
Well, actually, affronted, I don't want to replay the whole conversation. Ronan turned to me and said, well, who then? And I said Pep. And both Will and Ronan made a face as if it had never occurred to them that the incredibly handsome Pep Guardiola is handsome.
You pulled up a photo from the 90s of like a guy with a bad haircut and a ill-fitting suit, and you were like, look at this guy, he could be a model. And I actually thought you were joking.
He was modelling. that was from like a catwalk.
What?
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was a joke.
No, look up Pep Guardiola
I thought
model.
it was funny.
No. Pep Guardiola is extraordinarily handsome.
Yeah, unbelievable.
I'm amazed.
You're being fooled by the fashion and the slickness.
No. He is genuinely handsome.
That's objective. It's not even.
But the photo you showed earlier was not the man we see before us today.
Look. We all looked better younger. Will there's no shame in that.
Not Pep.
What?
He's got a glow up.
No, Pep in his younger days is extraordinarily handsome.
I think the baldness suits him though. I think it actually adds something.
He looks good every which way.
Every which way. Yeah.
There's not a bad photo of him.
No, there's not.
For people listening, Joe's hands are
serious here.
Like he's really I have a gun pointed at him.
I was amazed of being in a conversation of 3 that I was in the minority of Pep Guardiola is handsome.
Mikel Arteta, more hair gel than Ross and Friends. Like that's just overkill.
He has a very aggressive hairline. It's like he's never going bald, that man, and he's staying dark until he's much, much later. And they have the same kind of Spanish intensity. There's a sort of a fieriness about it. I don't know.
There's nothing wrong with Arteta either.
No.
But Rude.
Well, this photo you pulled up earlier.
Absolutely not.
What?
It's like this is. You're like, look at this man. This is a model. I was like, are we looking at the same photo?
No, he is like.
Okay.
I'd go so far as to say he's a beautiful man, and he still is.
He still is.
Okay.
Sorry, Ruud van Nistelrooy, Leicester 6 defeats in a row. So that's they may have to do something. This Sunday, Croke Park, hurling final. We have Cork against Dublin, Sarsfields of Cork against Nafina of Dublin, and then the football final, hotly anticipated, I think it's fair to say, the O'Callaghan's on one side for Coola and the Canavan brothers on the other side for Erigol Kieran. It's one of the tastier offerings in recent times.
Talking to Colin Keys about this on the phone earlier on, I can't remember.
You just do that, yeah.
Yeah, we do. It's usually in the car. One of us is in the car. But it's funny, my memory of All-Ireland club finals, you do kind of remember even ones back from sort of 2000, even before that, like when Colin Corkery was up with Nemo.
Funny you say that. I was at quite a few at the Corkery ones.
Yeah.
But Kieran
McDonald was about to say.
Oh, Jesus. I was pitch side. I can still remember.
There's a lot of common ground here today between Pep and Colin Corkery.
I don't even need a beer.
Some people get it, some people don't. McDonald for Crossmalina with the socks pulled up to his knees. To watch him pitch side, to appreciate how big a man he was as well.
Corkery kicked some outrageous free into the hill as well from nearly the halfway line.
Yeah.
But I suppose our conversation turned to, have we ever had a football
Could
final?
I be in it? Could we do a WhatsApp group call if you're talking about these things?
But the talk turned quickly to, have we ever had one where there's very clearly at least 2, quite possibly 3 of the best 4 or 5 forwards in the country, you know, like one for either team, and 2 in the case of Erigol Kieran.
So go on, give us names for people.
Well, Conor O'Callaghan, I think, is very clearly one of the top forwards in the country, and I mean, you could pick either Canavan. You know what I mean? They were Like they were effervescent the last day. Everything went through them. They were
one set up the other for a beautiful goal.
Yeah, they switch all the time, and they have the same movement. They have a lovely sort of body swerve, and they're very audacious in that they'll always take on goals. And it's become a cliche now, but the new rules should absolutely kind of suit them, And they're going to have some very, very talented Tyrone forwards left on the bench. But Con was incredible for Coola. Coola have a bit of a problem in the last 2 games in that they've almost looked home and hosed, and then somehow contrived to let the opposition back into the game with 5 or 6 points in a row. But then Con was out around midfield catching kickouts and stuff like that. He really is kind of all things to all men,
So he just wanders out, does he?
He kind of does what he wants. He's a brother Niall who's a very instinctive inside forward, and Con will do a lot of the running and kind of hand it off. And he's another brother Owen who's a very tenacious cornerback as well.
God, there were some games in that back garden.
And they have another brother called Keane, who people might remember from the
best of the lot.
Well, they might remember him from the Dublin hurling panel until he went away for a year. But Keane got married a couple of weeks back, and it was the day before the semi-final was supposed to be played. And Con was best man, and I believe the speeches were all wrapped up early in the day, so the lads could go home and get their heads down. And by the time they were home, the match was postponed.
Of course, yeah. Isn't that a huge sacrifice to make?
Sure is.
My goodness.
But no, it should be a great final. I do think that Errigal's line of form is a bit stronger because they beat Kilcoo and they beat Dr. Crokes. I think you can hang your hat a bit more on that.
Any recent encounter?
No. The two playing each other?
Yeah.
No, that's the beauty of it. And it's the same with the hurling final. Unless these teams played in challenge matches that we're not aware of.
But there's no semi-final of yesteryear? Or
no, like Cool have never won a Dublin championship before this year.
Of course. Yeah, okay.
No Tyrone club has ever won in All Ireland as well, which is hard to believe considering they're...
Surprising, yeah. Are Errigal Kieran traditionally the powerhouse of Tyrone football?
So Errigal Kieran didn't exist until there was a big fallout. It's well documented in Mickey Hart's book. It was about they used to be in Ballygawley, that's where they're from in Tyrone, and they had these summer leagues where the parish of Ballygawley was divided into 4 different subsections, and because they're Tyrone, they all took it incredibly seriously, and there was a row about a suspension about somebody not being able to play, and a lot of the people from a particular part, including the Hearts and the Canavans, pulled out of the club. So they set up this club, and it was partly because they had this young player called Peter Canavan who had to play for Tyrone, but he had no club. So actually the club was set up partly because they needed to get a club to Peter Canavan to go on and play for Tyrone.
They not called it Errigal Peter? It's a long time now, Mickey Hart's book, but I always remember one of the things that jumped out at me, I thought, God, that's quite cutting edge, was if he wanted to show the Tyrone team something that he thought they were doing really well and wanted more of it, he'd show them the video of them doing that certain thing, different clips, and say, brilliant. But if there was something about them that he wasn't liking, the way they were defending or things they were doing in attack, he'd find clips of other teams doing it and show it to them and go, now don't do what this lot are doing. But like all the while you're doing it too.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
I thought it was good.
Yeah,
it's my main memory of that book.
Yeah, well, I don't think Mickey Hart has any direct involvement in the team. Obviously, right. Peter Hart is on the team, but I think like the two Canavans, their fingerprints were on nearly every score.
And do Coola have the men to shut them down? Those two, are they even shut downable?
I don't know. It's kind of a mad one. Like Coola wouldn't have any experience as a club of being this far, but like this is Con O'Callaghan's. I mean, he's been in, including replays, he's played 8.
He's going to be in his 11th All-Ireland final.
Yeah. Like he's won 2 All-Ireland Club Hurling Championships. He's won an under-20 All-Ireland football with Dublin. He's won a Sigerson.
He's never lost an All-Ireland final, 10 matches.
He's never lost
8 wins, 2 draws.
And this Mick fits as well if you include the draws and replays and the All-Ireland Junior Championship he won, which kind of made his name in 2010. This would be his 13th All-Ireland final, and he hasn't lost any of them. So they have a couple of very sturdy heads, I think, for the big occasion.
An interesting bit of history as well. They'd be the second club to win football and hurling All-Irelands after St. Finbarrs.
After Finbarrs, yeah.
So
only
one club has done it, yeah.
The only other player who's won both is Alan Cairns, and he did it for 2 different clubs because he played football for Salthill, Knocknacarra.
Is there a dart commission?
I presume so. I haven't been talking to my old pals.
Surely you get a call now to come in it. You're kind of an honorary member.
But I would imagine so. It's a fair. It's a fair.
Oh, it's a big journey.
But it's a fair journey for the team, I suppose, from the point of view that it was a weird thing that happened a few years ago. The Dublin Football Championship used to be too big. You had 32 teams and at least 10 of them were getting trounced by 12 goals. So they decided to make a Senior 1 and Senior 2, effectively an A and a B. So they made it 2 16s, but inevitably towards the bottom of the top division and the bottom of the top division and the top of the lower division, there was some grey area, and whatever metric they used, Coola ended up down in the Senior 2, and they felt pretty aggrieved about it. And in their first year down there, I think they were beaten in a semi-final. In their second year, they actually won it, but because it was during a COVID year, there was no promotion and relegation.
Right.
And then they come back a third year and win it. So I think that
Impressive.
I think they started to get their act together while they were down there. They had ideas of winning the Dublin Championship, but it took them 3 years to actually get into it in the first place.
And is there a firm favourite between Sarsfields of Cork and Na Fianna of Dublin in the hurling?
No, I wouldn't have thought so.
Right, okay.
It's going to be pretty close. Again, you can only go by form, and the two semi-finals were kind of like Na Fianna's semi-final was pretty breathless in Thurles, but only because the weather kind of played a big, like you were wondering whether they were going to make as much of the wind in the second half. But I suppose Sarsfields have beaten Ballygunner, and particularly after Ballyhale went out in the Kilkenny Championship, I think Ballygunner were almost odds on to win the All-Ireland this year, and Sarsfields were brilliant that day. They were absolutely brilliant. They'd done all their homework. They had a brilliant game plan and they shut Ballygunner down. So I think carrying that into it, you probably, again, hang your hat on it a bit more, but sure, like, how can you tell? Two teams that have never played against each other before. No, it should be a good day.
Great. We're pretty much wrapped up. Ronan Mullen made what he had called an elevator pitch a couple of weeks back. It went on several trips up and down the Empire State Building. Worryingly, you said you have an elevator pitch. So
what for a segment called Elevator Pitch?
No, you've an elevator pitch. You want to mark our card for something. I know this is concerning Notre Dame.
It is 30 seconds. Okay, on Monday night, the College Football National Championship final being played. People who've been watching the NFL playoffs might be interested. It's the Notre Dame Fighting Irish against the Ohio State Buckeyes. Notre Dame have played in the Aviva Stadium a couple of times over the last 10 odd years. They're traditionally one of the sport's big prominent teams, but haven't been very good for a long time. They kind of look down their noses at the rest of the college football kind of fan bases. They think they're kind of above the grubbiness of college athletics in America. But this year they have kind of a likeable team. They have a young head coach. They've beaten some of the traditional powerhouses to get to the final, and while they are underdogs, they have a fairly good chance of winning, and it should be a very good game. So I think it'd be worth watching, and for people who might be familiar with them from them coming to Ireland, it should be a good game on Monday night. 12:30 kickoff, so a late one, but worth staying up for. And college football, for people who aren't that familiar, it's a little more hectic than the NFL, a lot more turnovers and a bit madcap. So it's kind of a different pace to NFL. People might like it.
That's how you do an elevator pitch.
Ding!
You know what I mean? We're only on the 10th floor. Beautiful.
Brilliant.
On Sky?
On Sky Sports Action, I believe.
All right, okay.
So worth the watch.
God, there's so much sport on. College sports I can't even think about right now. Okay, very good. I think that is us done. Keep an eye on your feed later on. We will be joined in studio by Rachel O'Sullivan and Aidan Fitzmaurice to talk about the new Irish women's national team coach who's been appointed in the last 24 hours or so, Carla Ward. We'll talk about Colin Healy's scathing press release, scathing of the FAI, and Aidan will chat to us as well about the RTE Virgin League of Ireland rights situation. So that is also in your feed. Yeah, I think that's us. Will, thanks very much.
Thanks, Joe.
Conor McKeon, thank you.
Cheers, Joe.